It was a night in Cincinnati that no one inside the stadium or watching around the world will soon forget. Jannik, the young Italian star who has quickly become one of the most admired players on the ATP Tour, walked onto the court for his semi-final match. The air was filled with the kind of nervous energy that only tennis at this level can deliver. Everyone knew what was at stake: a spot in the final, another chance for Sinner to prove why he is considered one of the brightest talents in men's tennis. But what happened that evening was far more than just about tennis. It became a celebration of life, of joy, and of a player who has quietly earned the respect and love of fans worldwide. As the first few games were played, the atmosphere was as tense and focused as always. Sinner, with his trademark calmness, was moving gracefully around the court, focused on his shots and locked into the rhythm of the match. The crowd was loud but respectful, reacting with cheers for every point, every rally, every brilliant winner. But then, in a moment that nobody had scripted, something very unusual happened. In between games, as Sinner sat on his bench taking a sip of water, a small group of fans in the stands began to sing. At first it was soft, almost playful. A few voices joined in, "Happy birthday to you." Sinner looked up for a second, almost surprised, not sure if he was hearing correctly. Then, like a wave spreading across the stadium, more and more fans picked it up. Within seconds, thousands of voices filled the Cincinnati night, singing in unison, wishing Jannik a happy birthday right there in the middle of a high-stakes semi-final. The match, the pressure, the competition, it all faded for a brief, magical moment. What mattered was that the fans wanted to show their affection for him, to remind him that beyond his fierce forehand and tireless work ethic, he was a young man celebrating a birthday far away from home. Sinner couldn't help but smile. He covered his face for a second, clearly overwhelmed, then looked around the stands, nodding, almost shy but deeply touched. For someone as reserved and humble as Jannik, it was as if the crowd had broken through his usual calm exterior and given him a gift he would never forget. He waved gently toward the stands, and the cameras captured his face, part embarrassed, part emotional, but fully grateful. It was pure, raw humanity in the middle of one of the biggest stages in tennis. The umpire, who had been preparing to announce the next game, paused and let the moment unfold. Even his expression softened as he watched the fans serenade Sinner. Players on tour are used to hearing cheers, chants, even boos, but this was different. It was affectionate, heartfelt, and it carried across the stadium with an energy that no one could miss. Commentators on television fell silent for a few seconds, letting the singing take center stage, before quietly remarking that they had never seen anything quite like it during a semi-final. For Sinner, who spends most of his year traveling, training, and competing far from family and friends, birthdays can sometimes pass almost unnoticed. Tour life is glamorous on the surface, but it can also be lonely. And in that moment, the Cincinnati crowd became his family. They gave him a memory that perhaps meant more than lifting a trophy, because it reminded him that his journey has touched people everywhere. Fans from all walks of life, from kids waving Italian flags to adults who admire his discipline, came together to celebrate his existence, not just his tennis. After the singing faded, applause erupted, and Sinner stood up, smiling wider than he usually does on court. He tapped his chest with his hand, a simple gesture of thanks, before returning to the baseline to continue the match. But something had changed in the atmosphere. There was warmth in every rally that followed. Every point he won was greeted with an extra cheer, every error forgiven with supportive claps. The crowd had made it clear, win or lose, they were with him that night. As the match wore on, Sinner found himself playing with an extra spark. It was as if the energy from that birthday chant had unlocked something inside him. He moved faster, his shots carried more conviction, and his determination seemed sharper than ever. The chants may have lasted only a few minutes, but their impact stretched across the entire match. It wasn't just about tennis anymore. It was about connection, about the bond between an athlete and those who admire him not only for what he does but for who he is. By the time the match reached its crucial stages, social media was already buzzing. Clips of the crowd singing "Happy Birthday" to Sinner were spreading rapidly, with fans from around the world commenting on how heartwarming and rare it was to see something so pure in the middle of a professional sporting event. "This is why we love tennis," one fan wrote. Another said, "Sinner deserves all the love, what a beautiful moment." Even players not competing in Cincinnati were reposting the clip, sending birthday wishes and adding their voices to the celebration. Back on court, though, Sinner stayed locked in. His composure remained, but every now and then you could see the smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. It was as if he couldn't completely hide how much the moment meant to him. And when the final point was played and the match ended, the crowd once again erupted, not only in applause for his performance but in admiration for the way he handled the night with such grace. In his post-match interview, Sinner was asked about the chants. His voice was calm, but his eyes revealed his emotion. "It was very special," he said, pausing slightly as if to take it in all over again. "I am far from home, far from my family, but tonight, the people here made me feel like I was not alone. It's something I will always remember." He smiled again, and the crowd responded with another cheer, this one filled with pride that they had been part of such a touching moment. Stories like these remind us why sports are more than just scores and trophies. They are about humanity, about connection, about shared experiences that go beyond competition. For Jannik Sinner, the Cincinnati semifinal will be remembered not only for the tennis played but for the love shown. A birthday serenade in the middle of a match. It sounds almost unbelievable, but it happened, and it left everyone who witnessed it with a memory to cherish. The beauty of the moment lies in its simplicity. It wasn't planned, it wasn't staged, and it wasn't about making headlines. It was about people coming together to celebrate someone who has given them joy through his game. It was about kindness, about recognizing that even champions are human beings who feel, who celebrate, who miss home on special days. And in that instant, the crowd gave Jannik Sinner the best birthday present he could have hoped for. As he left the court that night, the applause followed him all the way down the tunnel. He carried with him not only the satisfaction of a hard-fought match, but the warmth of thousands of voices that had sung just for him. And somewhere deep down, he must have known that no matter how many titles he wins, no matter how far his career takes him, the memory of that birthday in Cincinnati will always hold a special place in his heart.